what to do during events like these. We need more resources and safe places to go when a student feels unsafe. A student cannot go to their school counselor to tell them that they feel like hurting themselves or having a panic attack and expect to get the help they need. All they do is pull up your bad grades and place judgment on you for wondering why you're anxious in the first place. It took 3 whole school years for me to find out that there was a school psychologist, but she wouldn't see me because she only saw students with special needs. Having this resource is amazing, but a majority of the students there do not have that because they are normal students and not special education students. One step is simple training to the existing staff and finding qualified counselors, psychologists, etc., trained to help students with poor mental health have a successful education. If troubled students had these types of resources, they would have access to help that would prevent them from getting worse and prevent more students from becoming troubled before it starts. My high school education has been through teachers who were no help but more trouble because they didn't know how to help me. Guidance counselors who blamed my unstableness on my grades without realizing that me struggling with little support from the first place was the cause for my bad grades. Yeah, that's all I have. Okay. Sorry.
Hello, my name is Javier Renteria. I'm born and raised here in Hollister, California. And I would just like to share with you all that growing up, I always wondered why I came across a lot of broken families in the especially Hispanic community here in town. And after questioning myself all these questions, it led me to eventually be able to look into history. And then once I dug deeper into history, it made clear sense to me why many families would be broken today, just throughout all the abuse that has happened to Hispanic community, black communities, and any poor community around the area around America. And that's why I'm here to tell you all that there is programs and services that very much be needed in this community, because with a lot of programs and services, I feel I wouldn't, and with the proper education and proper history in the public school systems, I feel that I wouldn't have made half the mistakes I made growing up. You know, it's nobody's fault, but I feel before we end up discussing about construction or anything, I feel there's important services that have to be needed in the community first before we move any further. And mental health would be one, because I feel there is a lot of issues that we go through that we quite don't understand growing up. So if we could ever be able to work together, support each other, and bring these changes, then by all means, we're all in for it. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning. My name is Eric Elliott. I'm a program manager at Community Solutions here in town. I just wanted to speak a little bit. We do prevention at the high schools, and one of the things that we noticed last year was an increase in suicidality amongst the youth that we serve at, especially at the high schools. It's a real mental health crisis here in San Benito County, and there's a lack of resources to respond to the high needs of the individuals. The only service realistically in county that can provide mental health services is Health and Human Services for those that don't have outside private insurance. Youth Alliance also provides some services for mental health, but it's a limited scope. So a lot of times when we're taking referrals or talking to youth, and youth would come forward and share their stories and want preventative support and want to get support for their anxiety or depression, there is really a lack of places to refer them. Many times if they're referred to Health and Human Services, there's a long wait time or not adequate response at the level of care that they needed. A lot of times when somebody's suicidality and they're coming out of hospitalization, they really need a high, intense level of support. But because of the staffing challenges at Health and Human Services, there's not adequate response. So it's something that really needs to be dived into and looked at. I know in neighboring counties around us, there's a whole continuum of care with different levels of needs that respond to really adequately responding to the high needs of mental health services. So it would be something that I really suggest that this, and I know that we've had conversations with the school and other bodies to try to raise this issue in different ways. And hopefully with the Board of Supervisors' involvement as well, that you guys can really dive into this issue, look at it, assess the response levels and the level of support that's being able to be provided by Health and Human Services, and really adequately devise a plan to increase support and availability of services. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Diane Ortiz. I'm the Executive Director for the Youth Alliance. As many of you know, Youth Alliance has been providing prevention and early intervention services, support services, and organizing work in San Benito County for close to 2 decades. Well, as the Youth Alliance, we did a youth listening campaign this last year and a half where we spoke with over 3,000 folks, not only young people, parents, stakeholders. We had focus groups. We met with officials in the community, went to mental health advisory boards, different things like that in order to kind of get an idea of what was going on in the community. And over again, in meeting with law enforcement and justice systems, health and human services, education, public health, healthcare providers, parents and youth all reiterated that an extreme disconnect between behavioral health services, our systems, leadership, and access to services for youth and families was an issue at every point of entrance, especially in our mental health crisis situations. We're asking the board for leadership to work towards a solution to expand access to children and youth and mental health services immediately in San Benito County. In San Benito County, there are 1,080 residents for every one mental health provider. That is 3 times the level of need than in the state of California. The Behavioral Health Department has a staff vacancy rate of close to 50% at any given time, resulting in an average wait time for 3 months to see a therapist. In 2015 and 16, the grand jury listed mental health access as a priority need in San Benito County, and yet what has been done to work towards a solution? This is not acceptable, and it puts our kids and families at unnecessary risk and suffering. 1 in 4 students in alternative education has contemplated suicide. They do not need to suffer alone in this silent epidemic. Schools, social service agencies, families, and other groups are bearing the burden and weight of this broken system. And I don't say this lightly. We sit at the tables of many of these systems with education, with law enforcement, with other folks that are working to provide this response support system for our kids and families, and they're all trying to do it on their own. But this is a 3-legged stool with one of the legs is broken, and we need to do something about it. So I'm asking the San Benito County Board of Supervisors to put the issue of mental health as a priority, and that you agendize this issue, create a task force of community and system leaders to work on building a solution. Too many children and youth are suffering needlessly. So more access to behavioral and mental health services that are easy to access both in the community, schools, and in the behavioral health department. Crisis response supports for children and youth that does not rely only on law enforcement, but incorporates social workers. These are things that San Benito County can and must provide to our residents, and it is overdue. We have spoken with Congressman Panetta. I've also spoken with many of you on the Board of Supervisors, and we ask for you, what will you do? Will you create a multi-system task force to look into this issue? Will you agendize this? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I want to ask, there's other people here that are too shy. Would you please stand up if you came here with us and you're for having more services with mental health and improving the juvenile hall?
Okay, thank you. It's noted, and if you could make sure that the clerk has the names of the speakers that came to the podium would be very helpful. I don't know if they all filled out a speaker card. And what we'll do is we'll consider putting this on the agenda, see what type of options we may have. You know, a lot of times it's really dependent on state funding, but I think we should be looking at this. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Patrick Ellis. I'm the Executive Director at Chamberlain's Children's Center, and I also wanted to speak to this topic. And there's not much more I could add than Diane and all of the fine folks from Community Solutions and Youth Alliance have already stated. But what I can speak to is the relationships that I currently have with the staff of behavioral health and the staff of Health and Human Services here in this community. One thing I will say is that they have huge hearts, and they are doing their absolute best. But the one message that is repeated time and time again is that they do not have the staffing to accomplish what's going on in this community. And so I ask that you take these statements very seriously, and that we rally as a community to support not only the community but the folks who are already stretched very thin doing this work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim Foley?
I'm planning to speak at the Fairview Fallon issue.
Okay. I'll put that number on there then. I have no other speaker cards.
Anyone else would like to address the board? Okay, please step forward. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Board of Supervisors. My name is Richard Perez, Sr., and I am the Community Action Board Chairman. I'm also the Vice Chairman of Workforce Development Board. I support Youth Alliance. I support Chamberlain's. I support the Y. I think it's very important that this governing body look into these mental health issues. Some of the things that were explained here can be remedied if we just pay closer attention to what our youth are doing. It's a very complex and integral part of our community to find a solution. I think it is incumbent upon us to make sure that we have the resources available to our young people, and that we apply as much effort to that problem as possible. One of the things that I am working on right now is to try and get a youth center or a community center or a new public library, because these are the resources that I think will make a huge impact in a lot of young people's lives. As the young man was explaining, he comes from a difficult background, and I can relate to that. I know exactly what he's talking about. So it is my personal agenda to make sure that I do everything in my capacity as a community member to make sure that these obligations to our young people are fulfilled. So with that being said, there are a few things that have bothered me as I've gotten involved in the community. And one of them is the dysfunction between the city and the county. I think we need to work together to try and solve some of these problems, and in today's political climate, it doesn't seem to be happening. I think what we have is a huge disconnect between the community and the leaders within our community. I'm trying to bridge that gap. I think law enforcement needs to be in touch. I think the school system needs to be in touch. Health and Human Services needs to be in touch. We all need to find a way to contribute to this mental health issue. And it doesn't just affect the young people. What it does is it affects everyone within the community. Because when you have people who are untrained in law enforcement that don't know how to deal with these issues, that's when serious problems can arise. So I think what we need to do, and I'm also running for the Board of Trustees for Gavilan Community College, because I think what we need to do is to find pathways for our young individuals to find what's their talent, what their hidden potential is, and in order to do that, we have to have mentorship. We have to have people who are invested in the community and are doing their most to make use of the resources that we do get from the state, the county, and the city. So with that being said, I think it's very important that you all take the time to invest a little bit in what your constituents are saying to you and what you can do to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no more comments, I want to thank everybody for taking time to come in and express themselves to the Board of Supervisors. We'll move on to department head announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we do have an announcement out of our elections office. I'd like to invite Joe Paul Gonzalez.
Good morning, Chair, Board of Supervisors. Today, before you, I am like to talk to you a little bit about elections. The June 5th primary, we were short a couple hundred voters to reaching 29,000 voters, registered voters. And I can tell you that as of yesterday, for the first time, we have now surpassed 30,000 voters in this county. And of those 30,000 voters, 74% are registered to vote either by mail or they're all-mail voter because of the precincts that they're assigned to. So that leaves 26% of the voters who are now, they're strictly polling place voters. So as of yesterday, 2,078 vote-by-mail ballots were returned to the office that had been issued. And what we, of the 30,000 so voters, there are 22,181 vote-by-mail or mail ballot voters. So that translates to about really 9% of what was issued or will be issued with the vote-by-mail voters. I also want to talk about that the election staff has been working very, very hard preparing for 2 sessions poll worker training that will be held this weekend on Saturday and Sunday. The first will begin at 9 a.m. and the second will begin at 1 p.m. on each of the days. In addition, there's a lot more involved as far as the preparation for training. It's because for the first time ever, the county will be using the 10X e-poll book for the roster. And we believe that this is going to greatly enhance voter security and will also enhance the ability to determine whether a voter is in the right polling place and those kinds of things. It's really will help facilitate the voter to be able to have them vote the right ballot at the right polling locations. Early voting has already begun. It's from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the elections office, and the weekend voting will be on November 3rd and 4th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and that is that's the weekend before the actual election. And we do have enough volunteers filled right now, but we know from history that not all poll workers end up showing up. Sometimes people get sick or their children get sick, so they cannot volunteer on election day. So what we're looking for is for backups. So if someone is interested in assisting in the election, please please call the elections office at 831-636-4016. Thank you. That's my announcement.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay, thanks, Joe Paul.
Yeah, there's a couple more announcements. One out of the Internal Services Department. So just in line of what Joe Paul had mentioned about political activity, I just wanted to mention to the board and also to the employees that there's a general reminder that we've actually sent out. A memo shall serve to inform all county employees that political activities shall be kept out of the workplace. There are prohibited activities through our personnel ordinance and as well as state law. Prohibited activities illegal under state law. Participate in political activities of any kind while in uniform on the job. Just as a friendly reminder, there's quite a few more items listed, as well as other activities which are permitted off of work but not permitted while on duty. Express their opinions on political subjects and candidates, engage in partisan or nonpartisan political activities as an individual or as a member. Same item as other activities which are permitted off work but not permitted while on duty is participate actively in political conventions, speak publicly, or write letters or articles for or against any political candidates. and managing campaign or political candidates. So anyways, I just wanted to mention to the board and to the employees that we do have this policy in place. If anyone wants additional information, you can see HR and we can hand that out.
Yeah, I'm happy you mentioned that. It's very important that we remain apolitical, and that was a policy that was put in place, 16 years ago? Or,
yeah.
Sometimes we need to be reminded.
Right. The other one, last one is out of our clerk's office, clerk of the board. As a general reminder for the board, you are scheduled for a November 19th, 9 a.m. Assessment appeals meeting. I want to make sure the board's aware of that and reminded. Okay. That's all the announcements we have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to board announcements. I'm going to start on the other side. Supervisor Rivas.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank staff again. Last week, I was happy to attend a closing ceremony for that Nash Road for the bypass. Myself and Supervisor Medina. I want to say all of the members of the Board of Trustees for the high school. And so certainly it was refreshing to see. I made the comments there that having been a graduate of Samuel High School 20 years ago, we talked about possibly one day having an all-weather track, which is under construction currently, 20 years later. We talked about possibly closing Nash Road someday, and about having a campus on, the west end of the property the high school owned, all three of which have happened. And so, yeah, it takes time, and certainly, when we could talk about red tape in government and whatnot, but this effort to close Nash Road really was a collaborative effort between the city, the county, and the school district, and something that I'm really proud of, and I'm really happy to see actually happen. So thank you to this board, Mr. Chair, and look forward to more things to happen. So thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Munzer?
Nothing this week.
Supervisor De La Cruz?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Earlier, a member of the public was making comments, thanking some of these board members and not thanking myself, and I don't know where that's coming from, but I feel like I need to express, Mr. Chair. So please give me a minute. A while back, the city of Hollister decided to embark on an idea of creating a beautification process on the west side of Hollister, which I totally support because it is my district as a county supervisor. Unfortunately, the city members decided not to tell key members of a certain area, Central Avenue, that they were going to build a bicycle lane there and eliminate all the roads, all the parking spaces on Central Avenue. Well, living myself there over 40 years, I could tell you that was a bad move. So a community gather was gathered and to express interest of what's the benefits and the cons on creating a bike lane down Central Avenue at the same time eliminating all the parking spaces on north side of Central Avenue. Well, over 90% of the public in that community said no. They specifically said no, that they didn't want that. They wanted the parking spaces because on the west side of Hollister, call it what it is, you have a tendency having one or two families living in that house, which means 3 to 4 cars, and the parking space is near and dear to them. So I listened to them. I said, hey, this is a city issue, but as a county supervisor, I will support what the wishes are of the public in that community. And so it came out at the meeting that the public said, we do not want bicycle lanes. I'm in no position to dictate to the city of Hollister how they want to handle their affairs. But as a county supervisor, I do have an input because it is my district. We all serve the same constituency, and that's the west side of Hollister. There was another follow-up meeting that the understanding was that the first group was misunderstood of how the grant money can be used. After the meeting, the same response was they do not want the bike lane on Central Avenue because of many issues, particularly parking space on Central Avenue. And again, I expressed to the city of Hollister, specifically Mary, hey, Mary, the public in this part of the community does not like eliminating parking spaces to create a bike. Why don't you move the bike lane forward to the Buena Vista Road and make it a Class 3 bicycle lane? Well, the grant doesn't allow it. I, as a county supervisor, have no say whatsoever on what the City of Hollister grant proposal is. I can provide influence, guidance, leadership, assistance, a hand, but that's as far as I can. But in terms of accusing me, in terms of directing staff, I have no say whatsoever. If the majority of the public doesn't want it, that's the will of the public. It's not my will. I mean, we're all elected here. We all have bosses. And let me tell you something. I listened to the bosses in two different meetings. I got it loud and clear. Let's work around it. I think the city hall should come back and say, hey, county, how can we work together to make it better for the public's interest? And that's where I stand, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Medina?
Yeah, I'd just like to clarify one thing with Mr. Curtin. Is he here today? I think beginning early November, we'll be doing the road improvement on Lovers Lane to be completed by Thanksgiving.
Well, to be completed by around the first week of December is the schedule. The initial work will start in a couple of weeks, and then the actual paving will start around Thanksgiving time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's it. Yeah, I was going back to Supervisor Rivas's comments about Nash Road closure. I think the other night at an event at the high school that I attended, it worked really well. It's a dark street, even at night, and I saw the gates closed, was able to walk across that street safe, and when I came out of that event, the gates were open, but it made you think of the safety aspect. So we'll see how that works out, and the public needs to see how it works out. And one of the points I think we need to take away from this meeting, so up to this here, is that the city of Hollister and the county has to work together on some of these issues. Whether it's the grant and park and try to resolve, and it sometimes takes a lot of time and effort, but we do have successes too. So I know everybody that gets elected wants to do that. We're not here to fight with each other. We're here to solve problems. So with that, we'll move on to consent agenda. Any board members would like to pull any items?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I need to recuse myself and abstain from a vote on item 6, and I'll be recusing myself in the closed session on item 25.
Okay, and I would like to pull 6 myself.
I'd like to pull 12.
12.
6 and 12.
Any other items? Any items from the public? With that, I'll bring it back to the board for the consent agenda as stated and amended.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Supervisor Munzer is recusing himself from item 6. My question is, maybe we should have the closed session discussion first before approving item 6 and continuing the item to the next meeting. Would the rest of the board concur with that?
I thought we did that, Mr. Chair, but yeah, I'm okay. It's a good idea.
All right. Do I need to make a motion for that or just continue the item? Geez, I hope we're done by this afternoon.
Say the next meeting.
Yeah, we could do it this afternoon after the closed session. We'll continue it to after the closed session for item 6. So we don't need to make a motion or okay, by consensus. And item 12, Supervisor Medina.
Yes. Item 12 deals with a company called Keep It Simple. We had the original contract with Keep It Simple for $88,000, which was approved on March 20th of 2018. We are asking for an additional $400,000 to supplement this contract to pay for some of the services that were provided when our network was down. Now, the question I have is, how long has Keep It Simple been working for us? Of that $400,000 that we're asking for, how much of it has been spent already due to this network deficiency? And the other question I had was, when you look at the actual scope of the contract that was signed on March 20th of 2018, number 2, it states IT support, working with county IT on a scheduled basis, monitor and maintain the entire county data network, provide any recommendations to improve or optimize the network, including VMware and physical systems, AD and related services, infrastructure and security systems, email and related systems, network and Wi-Fi solutions. One of the issues that I have with this is we are providing a revenue and an expense on our side of $400,000 to a company that should have been doing this in the beginning under the $88,000. So I'd like to know the last time we revisited another company besides Keep It Simple, and what we can do in the future to look at other individuals or other companies that can provide the support.
So I'll go ahead and start with that. I have Sacramento here, our IT manager / supervisor here to add any further comments, but I can tell you that we've probably had them, we worked with them for at least 8 years, probably around there, just to answer that first question. Really, they were brought on to supplement technology. We've probably had a total of 3 people for a better part of the 10 years or so in our central NOC area, Network Operating Center. Comparing it to Monterey County, they have over 100. Santa Cruz County, over 100 employees to do the same thing. And I can tell you that in fiscal year 14-15, only $4,000 was spent on KISS, or $4,286. Fiscal year 15-16, $5,973. 16-17, $6,000. 17-18, $12,930. And 18-19, $34,000, which was a project that was approved by your board for virtualization. So it's really more or less they're there to assist when the IT server network administrator needs some assistance with security or other questions that they run up against a roadblock with. They do come highly recommended. They're certified in quite a few things: ethical hacking through the EC Council, CAEH, Certified Hacking Forensics Investigators, Center for Internet Security Consultants, trained NIST consultants, quite a few other things, as well as come highly recommended by the FBI. The FBI is actually recommend them. So from that perspective, we were very fortunate to have them on board during the outage that we actually had. And with that, I think the last question you had asked was, when was the last time we went out and looked? I think, and I don't want to speak for you, but I do know a lot of department heads, they attend conferences related to their field, and there are a lot of vendors that they usually meet with and consult with, and in many cases there's different companies that actually work for each department in some way, shape, or form from a consulting point of view. I'm not 100% sure. Can you answer that question, Sacramento? The last time that you've actually gone out to look, or you need to go to the
Again, thank you, Board. I actually attended the CISA conference last year, where a lot of county IT departments or county IT offices attend. And within that conference, there's a series of vendors that we get to speak to and get to learn about their services and products that they provide in general for IT. So we have, have had conversations with other agencies. The benefit as we move forward, especially as an example with the outage, was because we've been working with KIS for a number of years. They know our infrastructure, they know our background, so they're able to assist us very promptly with good response times. They have a plethora of expertise on hand
that they can deploy and manage. So there's a great advantage just from that perspective to be able to come in and be able to help us or assist us in that manner.
I may, Mr. Chair, add to that. And it doesn't mean that we can't go out to RFP or go look at other vendors if the board so chooses in the future. I think that goes along with a lot of different contracts that we have. At times we probably, we do go out at times for different things, and it doesn't mean that we can't continue to look at that as well in the future.
Okay.
So how much of the $400K have we spent?
That was still on my list. So now, $114,000 was paid out or is pending, and that was for 1 month, and then about $100 and I don't know have the exact number. It's about $120 for the following month. So these two numbers need to be paid out, and that's why why this agenda item.
So that's $214,000. So what's the other?
Approximately.
What's the other 100 and something for?
It's probably it's for future items if we need to continue to move forward with items on this. This is, again, keep in mind.
Can we look at someone different now? And now that we're up and going, let's not just give them a blank check of $400,000. Is it possible to just pay them what we need to pay them and then go look at a different vendor?
That is something that we can do.
And then finally, the last question I have is, I know it's an emergency spending. I know time was of the essence. Mm-hmm. But when we had the failure on the hillside and south side, when we had the flood over in Lovers Lane, we had an emergency meeting and spoke about this stuff. Mm. Why didn't we do the same here?
It is within the authority of the CAO to move forward with an incident, and I have done on other occasions where there has been a cooling or a heating system out at this has happened before in, I believe, the elections office over the holidays, and over different times there's been failures of things. And
what was the price of that? Roughly?
About $100,000.
So not $400,000.
About $100,000.
So not $400,000. I'm looking at the magnitude of the dollars, and we're making exceptions. We have an emergency meeting for Lovers Lane. We have an emergency meeting for the hillside, but this was kind of not brought to anybody's attention. That's the only thing I'm trying to look at here.
One of the things that if I could interject, is that points well taken, Supervisor Medina, but I think the Southside Road and Lovers Lane was driven. Those emergency meetings were driven by the Board of Supervisors themselves, rather than staff driven. And not to say that we probably shouldn't have had a meeting for the seriousness of the the computer situation, but maybe that's something we got to take into account in the future.
Agree.
Okay, Supervisor De La Cruz.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just listening to both you and Supervisor Medina, Ray. Yeah, I'm at the position that we got to start. Ray's going to hate this. We got to start from scratch. Just like auditing, you switch auditors every 3 to 5 years, and to stay with the same IT company, there's a tendency to get lazy, complacent, do other things, and I'm the position that we have to look at this again.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the board? I'll add on before I recognize the CAO again. I view this as unfortunate expense. We had some speakers earlier talk about behavioral health. We have an idea what some of the issues are there as a board, and it's no different than many of our other departments. They are understaffed. They're undercompensated, relatively speaking, within the region. When I came onto the board, we had no IT department, and then once we did get an IT department, it is completely not even comparable to any other county of our size. But you could say that about the sheriff's office and every other area that we serve. That in order to meet the shortcomings, we hire outside help, and we do it on a shoestring at times, and it finally caught up to us a little bit here, and the familiarity and the need that we got to get over these problems right now kind of necessitates this extension of this contract. But that said, I think it's always good to be at a point where you do kind of look out at other vendors and RFP, just like what we did with Recology recently and other contracts we work with. CEO.
I just wanted to add, and just for clarity, the board was informed of this particular item. We did discuss this, and we did get a direction at about a board meeting or two ago concerning the outage. So I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware of that.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? If not, I'll recognize. Oh, Supervisor.
I'll speak after.
Okay. I recognize the public. Anybody from the public would like comment on this issue? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. Supervisor Rivas.
Certainly, I think the points that have been made are well taken. I think that what would be helpful for me in the next month or so is I know in the past Ray's done a good job and IT staff have done a good job to provide us an update as far as the needs and assessing the state of IT in this county, and I think that's probably warranted here as far as the issue that we had recently. It was a major issue, and so certainly maybe changing the approach we take. And I think that certainly I'm not in a position today to say whether this contract needs to be approved or not, but had I, with more information in front of me as far as the direction we want to take the county as far as from an IT perspective, whether this is the right vendor or not, I have no idea, but I think it would be helpful to have an update from IT department as as far as what our needs are, and then we can either stick with keep it simple or move in a different direction. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Munzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ray, are all the issues resolved, or are we still resolving issues?
I'll defer that to Sacramento.
So we're in a state where issues have been resolved. We continue to look at our infrastructure to make it better, to make it more efficient. So that's one of the pieces that we're doing, along with working through projects that are coming along. So projects, as an example, with the extension of the jail and an IDF room. So looking at that project, that infrastructure that will need network configuration and security configuration. So, there's different projects that are coming along that we're thinking about as we move forward, not just to mention the current infrastructure that we have. So keeping that in mind, and just from my perspective, from an IT's perspective, we've worked so far well with this company. Not that we can't work well with other companies, so we'll definitely look out to see to bring possibly other folks to the table and seeing what they have to offer. But again, for now, we're keeping in mind all the different projects as we move forward and continue to monitor our county infrastructure. So that's our primary goal, along with upgrading our goals. So based on the 5-year plan, there's still a big initiative there to upgrade switches, to upgrade certain old equipment that we have. So as we move forward, again, these are just some of the items that we're keeping in mind and hoping to improve. So.
Okay, so basically we're extending this contract for a little more than a year time. We are dependent upon staff's recommendation on even when we go out to an RFP, we still are dependent upon staff. And I don't think, and we need somebody in place now, as Sacramento said. So I support moving forward with this extension of the contract, and with the caveats of directing staff to look at having a recommendation and an RFP available for us at the when this extension expires in December 2019.
Okay. Supervisor Medina.
Can I make a motion?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve up to $214,000 to keep it simple. And upon the payment of these dollars, look at different individuals or companies to provide us services for the other roughly $186,000 they had intended to spend on this.
Second.
Okay. Does the clerk have the motion clear?
Mr. Chair, I don't think the public has been.
Yeah.
Have you opened it up to the public?
He opened it up.
You did. Okay. I just want to make sure. Yeah. I know. That's fine.
So, are we okay with the county council on the motion? The clerk has the motion, and the way I understand it, it's for a partial extension and revenue
To pay off what we have already used with Keep It Simple.
So I would recommend that the board, if the board so chooses to go that direction, up until this date,
yes,
whatever those costs are, because I don't know what the number may be a little bit more than what you said, and cover those costs, and then we can go. And
yes, I would agree with that.
Okay, and the second does as
Oh,
well.
Except an
So I apologize. Really quick. So moving forward for my team, do we continue to get support from them?
Sacramento, you need to wait until board makes their decision, and we'll work on that.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
No.
3 noes. And so let's try this again.
So I will make the motion, Mr. Chair, that we, per staff recommendation, we extend the contract and direct staff to have a new RFP in place by December 2019.
Okay, this is to approve the staff recommendation and to have an RFP process by next year. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh,
The contract
under discussion. I'm sorry.
The contract
Supervisor Medina?
actually ends March 20th of 2019.
No, I'm reading here, and that's why I looked to see.
Yeah.
I'm reading the purpose of this amendment. I get this number 2.
Or December 31st. Okay, I see what you're saying.
You say,
I was
okay.
looking at the old one.
Okay, all right.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
3-2. So that's the direction.
Okay.
Come back at the conclusion of this contract with an RFP. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll move on to regular agenda. CEO Espinoza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to invite up our Behavioral Health Director, Alan Yamamoto. He'll be presenting this item, and this is with regards to approving a contract with Sun Streets for women's parental residential treatment for the period of October 23rd, 2018 through June 30th, 2019. Alan?
Yeah, good morning. So this is the follow-up on the contract that was discussed at length in a previous board meeting with the local Hollister-based Sun Street Women's Perinatal Residential Facility. So if you have any questions, I'd
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public or comments? If not, I'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
Mover, staff recommendation.
Second.
First and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none. We'll move on to our item 17. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Yes, this is out of our office administration. I'd like to invite Kim Stone, as well as, I don't know if any further comments from our management analyst, Dulce Alonso, but I'd like to invite Kim Stone. She's our lobbyist in Sacramento, and we had asked her to come down and give us an update on progress from her office for support of our county at the state. Okay?
Just that one? Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Ray. Thanks, Dulce. Very happy to be here with all of you board members. Good morning. I just wanted to give you a little update on what we've been doing on behalf of the county in Sacramento, give you information on some of the bills that have become law this year that will affect the county, and then make myself available to answer any questions. So before I start, the overview of the California legislature is that it's very blue. You know, we are a majority Democratic state and a majority Democratic legislature. There are Democratic supermajorities, or close to supermajorities, in both the Assembly, which definitely has a supermajority, and then in the Senate, which may or may not have a two-thirds supermajority, depending on what happens in the Senate race in this county, which I'm sure you're all well aware of. The impact of that is, the reason that's important is that you need a two-thirds supermajority to pass taxes, and if there's a two-thirds Democratic supermajority, that makes that easier to do so. So in the Senate, again, it's a little bit up in the air as to what's going to happen there, but it's probably going to be a Democratic supermajority. The Assembly also has a supermajority. As you know, currently our governor, lieutenant governor, and all statewide office holders are Democrats. That's likely to be very similar after the November election. I don't expect a tremendous amount of changes. Oh, wait, I'm going the wrong way. Sorry. The state is becoming increasingly Democratic as time goes on. These are voter registration numbers over the last decade. And you can see that Republican voter registration has declined. Well, that's the red line, while Democratic voter registration, that's the blue line, has increased. Also, the gray line at the bottom, that's decline to state or independence, that has also increased. Here's another chart that shows the same thing. And interestingly, in 2017, decline to states crossed, see where they cross the red and the gray, crossed the number of registered Republican voters. And this was a piece of an article in the LA Times. Registered independents may soon outnumber Republicans on California voter rolls. So in 2018, Democrats have 44%, Republicans have 25%, no party preference 24.95%. So that number is very close. As you know, we're in Governor Brown's last term. He's been very influential in terms of, he's been far more sort of independent and vetoing bills, even bills that don't have a lot of opposition or that were kind of traditional Democratic stalwarts. I fully expect Gavin Newsom to be the next governor of the state of California. All the polls have him ahead unless something really dramatic changes. And I think that the differences between Jerry Brown and Gavin Newsom are going to matter to you all in the county. And I'll tell you what I think those differences are and then why I think they're going to matter to the county. So one difference is age. Jerry Brown is 80. Gavin Newsom is 51. Another difference is marriage status. Governor Brown didn't marry until 2005, very late in life. Gavin Newsom has been married twice already. Also, children. Jerry Brown never had children. Gavin Newsom already has 4. Jerry Brown went to Santa Clara, Berkeley, and Yale. Gavin Newsom went to Santa Clara. And then I think most of us know Jerry Brown's resume, but the interesting thing, in addition to him having been governor when he was very young in 1975, he also comes from a really strong local government background. Sure, he was the attorney general on the statewide, but he was the mayor of Oakland, and really, before this term as governor, kind of grew up in local politics for like his second career. And happily for you all from the county, Gavin Newsom does have that same background. He was also the mayor of San Francisco. He was the mayor of San Francisco for a decade. And I think for county and local government people, it's really helpful to have state folks who have local government experience. Now, the tricky thing is that when people sit in different seats, they have different views. So lots of times you have people who used to be locals and then they go up to the state and come back and tell you what to do and don't give you any money for it. But at least they know how much that hurts, whereas somebody who's never been a local elected doesn't have, I feel like we have less of a chance of getting to them with that argument. And then the other really interesting thing, and we put these slides together, I had to give them to you all 2 weeks ago, so the numbers have only gotten bigger since then. But the other interesting thing is that Jerry Brown, when he got elected for the first and the second time, did so with very little political spending. He did not need to be beholden to donors because he was so popular. Now, his first time around, he did spend $36 million. Notice the second time around, 2004, $5 million. That's a really low amount. Like the Senate seat in this district they're going to spend more than that, in more than Jerry did his whole second race for governor. That weekend before the election, his second race for governor, he was back in Connecticut at like his Yale Law School, I don't know, 50th, 25th, I don't know, some high number reunion. This slide, like I said, I sent it about 2 weeks ago. Gavin's already spent over $21 million. And that was like not even in the last month of the election. So that number is going to get much bigger. So there's going to be much more sort of donor pressure and interest on Gavin than there was, than Jerry had. And then the other thing is the aspirations. People are not talking about what Jerry Brown is going to do next, other than maybe like what other, dog he's going to get or what he's going to grow in his, retirement area. But people are mentioning Gavin Newsom as a possible presidential candidate, and so those future aspirations are going to really influence what he does politically. So the reason that I think that those things matter is that as we figure out what we want to do for the county and how to make sure that our interests get explained up at the governor's office, we need to take into account for Gavin, assuming that he is the governor, what his interests are, what his future are, how it affects his other donor constituent groups. So some of the ways that San Benito County engaged at the state level this year is for the San Pacheco Reservoir expansion process, which I'm happy to say I went to and spoke at the hearings on behalf of the county, and that passed. Also, in terms of Senate Bill 1, the transportation funding, we testified on behalf of the county in front of Senate Transportation Committee hearings, and the county is due some of those funds. We did try to do something with the Health and Human Services Agency to get some additional money for homeless services in the state budget. We kind of did this a little bit late at the last minute through the process, and we were not successful in getting it through. But I think that this is the time of the year where we want to think about if we have not small to us, but small at the state budget level, projects that might be appropriate to solicit funding through the state budget process, to get them in early and to start that process really, really soon. We may have an assembly member with strong ties to the county coming up soon who will be able to work with the senator from the area. And if we're going to do a budget play, we really need to get it in early, and it needs to be very concrete, very specific, and ready to go. And so I think... And I want to note that James Riding-Sword was really helpful in providing information and ways to do that. And Ana Caballero really tried to kind of get it in the budget at the last minute, but it's hard to mess with the budget at the very end of the process. It's much easier to do it sooner rather than later. Oops, wrong way again. So I also want to let you know just about some sort of bigger issues that happened statewide that at least hopefully this one won't affect our county, but some of the legislative changes you need to know about. So Senate Bill 901 Dodd passed with support of the California State Association of County. It does provide additional state funding for fire prevention and forest management. So to the extent that we have agricultural areas or urban forest areas, there may be opportunities to apply for forest management money from there. The bill doesn't prevent counties from subrogating against, which basically means trying to get your money back from utilities if it turns out that the utilities were responsible for causing the fire. But it does allow utilities to pass along some additional cost to ratepayers, which may impact sort of both industrial and agricultural ratepayers, probably more than consumer ratepayers, but that we'll have to wait and see. Also, interestingly, Senate Bill 1260 by Hannah Beth Jackson allows your county to collaborate with federal, state, and other counties in collaborative forest management issues because fires don't recognize, like, jurisdictional boundaries. And so particularly in a county like this where you're so close to other areas, this bill sort of allows and encourages your county to work with neighboring counties on prescribed burns and other sort of prevention issues. And the one thing that, well, the one of many things that we collectively learned from those fires, particularly up in the North Bay and Santa Rosa area, is that fire risk is different than it used to be. And areas that did not used to be considered at risk for fire are at risk now because of climate change issues and because of drying issues and because of houses being in different areas than they used to be. And so even if there are areas like this that haven't traditionally really had to think about fire so much as an ongoing concern. Just ask the folks in downtown Santa Rosa that did not think they were really at risk either. And so I encourage you when you're doing your planning and going forward to take advantage of this and really sort of plan appropriately. So another bill that passed that will affect the county and employers in the county, Senate Bill 1343 by Holly Mitchell, requires all employers of more than 5 employees to train both managers and line employees on sexual harassment prevention. Current law only requires employers with greater than 50 employees to train managers on sexual harassment prevention. So now you've got to do managers and line employees. There were some other sort of Me Too and sexual harassment bills, but a couple of them got vetoed. There was one preventing the use of arbitration agreements and one making it easier to have discrimination lawsuits. Governor Brown vetoed those, but I don't think that a Governor Newsom would veto those for those reasons that I articulated earlier, and so we should be ready for those changes coming down. One thing that I know that this county was interested in was the coroner-sheriff bill, Senate Bill 1303 PAN, which would have required replacement of the office of the coroner or the sheriff coroner with a medical examiner. That would have been really difficult for this county because of sort of logistics and expenses. That bill passed both houses of the legislature, and the only reason it's not law is because Governor Brown vetoed it. I fully expect that bill to come back. And I don't know, and I don't think you can count on a veto from Gavin Newsom. He's going to have different pressures and I suspect a much lower percentage of bills vetoed than Jerry Brown does. And so I don't want to, be too negative here, but I don't know if we can count on this same result next year. And I know that this was a big concern, and we might need to start thinking. We do need to start thinking about that. Oh, okay. So there are a number of other bills that became law. And I provided you all, and then the members of the public, if you want them, they're in the back, with 2 handouts that have all of the bills that we were tracking on behalf of the county that became law. One of them just says Stone Advocacy for San Benito County, bill chaptered, and there are that's this handout, and then the other one is the cannabis bills that affect the county that were chaptered. That's a separate handout, and so rather than go over each of them because there's really a lot, I provided them to you, and I'm happy to take any questions or go over them, later if anybody has any questions on those.
Okay, Supervisor Rivas.
Right, yeah, I want to thank Kim Stone for the update. I really appreciate it. And my question isn't for Kim. I think it's more for, I noticed in the handout, the bills chapter, section 2 bills, AB 1771, which is by Assemblymember Bloom, related to planning and zoning regional housing needs assessment, and then SB 828 by Senator Scott Wiener, which is the land use housing element. And certainly, I've never been a member of the Council of Governments, but certainly those are 2 important housing bills that would affect, I would assume, our county. And so possibly maybe the representatives of this board that do sit on COG, maybe we could get Mary Gilbert here next time to kind of specify, the housing element, because it's done through COG, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we could get an update.
What was the numbers?
It was AB 1771, the planning and zoning. It's on the first page of the handout.
Okay.
And then the second one is SB 828, land use housing element, which is on the 3rd page.
Thank you.
So maybe if we could, Ray, if we could get an update from Mayor Gilbert. I mean, there's a lot of, obviously this is an election season. So I've been hearing the mayor from Hollister saying about a vision and about slowing down growth. He hasn't specified what that vision is. But according to state law, that vision should be in the housing element. And so certainly getting an update from Mary to see the process. And because the housing element is a serious, serious deal in California now, where local governments up and down the state are being penalized for failing to submit a housing element to the state. And so certainly we don't want to get caught in that. And so, and obviously when you talk about the Council of Governments, I mean, it is representative of all the, the major local governments in this county, San Juan Bautista, the county of San Benito, and Hollister. And it's a great avenue for us to have a cooperative spirit moving forward when you talk about growth patterns and the future of this county. So if we get an update from Mary about the housing element process, that would be great.
Yeah, and also I know that there's a portion of that comes out of the RMA office, the planning department, so I'll make sure both of them work together.
That'd be great. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you,
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Medina.
Yeah, thank you for the update. The question I have is, you've been with us for about 10 months now. What have you brought to the county in monetary means? Or is there something that you're working on right now that will bring us some dollars to the bottom line here?
Yeah, unfortunately, the place where we tried to bring additional money was for the homeless services, where we were looking for between about $2 to $4 million for homeless services. We did not succeed in getting that. And then now the legislature is as you know, in recess. The new legislature will be sworn in at the beginning of December, and the new legislative session will start in January. And so what we need to do in terms of finding money for the county is figure out now what we want, like what sort of specific asks we can make through the budget process, and start that really early, like even in December, but if not in December, in January, to get it in the budget process for next year. So
there's nothing else besides the homeless that you were trying to... Correct.
But what I want, the reason that I want to bring this up now is so that you all can tell me what other sort of specific, and it can be the board or it can be agencies who have sort of specific, concrete, ready asks that we can fit into the statewide budget process, because that's how it works. We can't just be like, oh, okay, help us out, we need money for the general fund or whatever. We need a very specific, ready to go project, which we did have with the homeless land and services, and we could even do more than one if we wanted to. But our best bet will be something sort of very specific and concrete that will be helpful to us that we can stick in.
Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor David Cruz or
No comments, Mr. Chair.
Munzer?
Okay, so the other law that I did want to bring up along with the housing element, SB 1305 Jackson does require local planning agencies to revise their safety element when they revise their housing element. So all of those, and that was because of all the fire stuff, right? And so that's in part so that you think about where you're going to put new, right? Of course, we need more houses to put more people because of homelessness and housing prices are so high, but if you put the houses in the middle of the forest, then that's going to mess up and you're going to have big fire prevention issues. And so the idea is that the state is encouraging the counties to think about all that together at the same time. And then there are two additional bills sort of post-fire that also impose new obligations or opportunities on counties. One, you can enter into agreements to notify residents about emergency services, and then there's also some grants for emergency services. So if there are emergency services that we lack, this is the time where we can figure out, okay, what do we need and how do we apply for, so we can apply for some of those grants.
All right. Anyone from the public would like to comment?
Okay, there's a couple more cannabis laws that I gave on the handout there. The one that I feel like I should point out to you is that if you have a local license pending, you can get a state cannabis license, even if the locals haven't said yay or nay yet, which I wanted you to know about. And then there's 18 other cannabis laws that are in the handout. And so the question, I sort of already answered this, what this means for 2019 planning is that we really need to get on it now in terms of what the county's needs are and where we want to see if the state can help with that. And so if you want me to come back, like maybe after the election and give a post-election and receive guidance from you about what those areas are, or have individual meetings with other folks, I just want to encourage us to get on that as soon as possible. And then I do want you to know that in terms of some of the bad news, I really think that Gavin Newsom is not going to veto as many bills as Jerry Brown did. And so some of the bills that were bad for counties, like prohibiting use of contractors or the coroner bill, may face different results. We need to get our budgets asks in early, and they need to be really specific. And for transportation funding, I think what we may want to do is partner with our neighboring counties and do regional-wide asks so that they're not just specific to us but bigger. I think our chances would be far better if we did that.
Yeah, Supervisor
Kim, and that's a great point. I think, the best way to facilitate that would be through our staffs.
We should like right now, honestly, so we figure out what we want and then set up meetings with their transportation folks about what they want and then do it together, because the same thing, the roads help the roads help all of us.
Network,
and we're small and our little congestion is not going to be a big deal, but the San Jose people who want to go to the beach, right, we all do that together, and there's way more people and it makes us much more powerful. And so to the extent we can incorporate our transportation goals with our neighboring communities' goals and make them part of a bigger ask, we would have, I think, greater success in achieving those. And again, this is the time to think about it so that we can be ready for the beginning of the year. And then the last thing that I gave you is, I didn't come up with this, it's haikus of the California state budget ballot measures. It explains each of the ballot measures in haiku. And I have them in the back too, and I think it's relatively unbiased and accurate about what they are, and I just thought it was very clever. And for those of us who work with them and deal with other people, I thought you might want to see it and perhaps share with others.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone from the public like comment?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Board of Supervisors. And Ms. Stone, thank you for coming. I know that I've kind of been maybe critical of the fact that the $150,000 is being spent on this consultant in Sacramento. And I've asked before what's going on, what is she doing up there for the money that we're giving up there. And I believe this is the second time that she's come down here. Maybe I've missed a meeting or so that maybe she's come down a little bit more than that. It's very disappointing to hear that they were late in applying for trying to get some funds for the shelter. I don't know if it was how late it was. She didn't explain. I just know that you weren't able to get it in there in time, and I know that Assemblyman Caballero has been working on it, and we have gotten some funds on there, so maybe some cooperation and communication. I think there was a miscommunication as to why they were late and why we didn't get it in there. I don't know. Maybe she started 10 months ago and they should have started it 11 months ago. I'm not sure. But now that she's asking for direction, and we do need some funds for fire, and we need some funds for safety here in the county. So maybe that's one of the goals that you can try to look for, to get some funds, as well as earlier, we had the mental health issues that we do need some funding. I don't think it's a federal. We need to go out and get federal funds. We can go out and get federal funds and state funds wherever we can get it, but there is a shortage of different types of funds here within the county, and I think that if maybe there's more communication between Ms. Stone and the staff, and either it coming down here and actually sitting one-on-one with the supervisors and finding out what the needs are, we can get some more bang for our buck. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? If not, I know it's ongoing work, and I'm concerned about transportation coordination being on COG, and I see regional cooperation, particularly when we pass G with the Highway 25. Both ends of that highway needs to be addressed, at the 101 up to the Santa Clara county line to San Felipe Road. That's take a regional effort. And so we're in need a lot of help with that, and from our state representatives and others. So with that, we'll move on to the next item, 18.
Yeah, I'd like to invite up our Health and Human Services Department and our Director, Jim Ridingsword.
Good morning, and hello, Barbara. It's good to see you. Yeah. Several months ago, the board asked us to work on the opioid and create an opioid task force. Today, we want to give you a relatively brief update on that and show you the website that we are launching today. And I also want to say, when you finish here today, you can walk down to the Veterans Center and get your flu shot. Okay, so I'd like to invite Dr. Gail Newell up to lead this presentation.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you, supervisors, for inviting me back today. I want to give you an update on our 1-year anniversary of the San Benito County Opioid Task Force. With your support and approval 1 year ago, concerned individuals, including those of us from the Public Health Services, came together to address the increasingly problematic tragedy of opioid misuse in San Benito County. We have had a very successful year as the task force, and our task force has grown across disciplines to almost 50 members representing over 20 agencies. The representatives include those from law enforcement, behavioral health, public health, emergency medical services, local government. Supervisor Rivas has been participating actively, and I want to thank him for that. Healthcare providers, pharmacists, Hazel Hawkins Hospital, Community Food Bank, and other community members with lived experience. The task force has marked its first year with many noteworthy milestones. I want to highlight that we were invited, we applied for a grant to be included into the California Opioid Safety Network Accelerator Program, which we were approved for. And this provides our task force with expert coaching, technical assistance, and networking opportunities. And most importantly, perhaps, it has also funded AmeriCorps Vista volunteer to join our task force and work with our county agencies. And you're going to hear from Veronica Johnson, who's here today and is a homegrown phenomenon of her own. And she's going to launch our website this morning live for you with the help of Sacramento and our IT services. Besides working with the California Safety Network, we've also done many educational presentations to public and private organizations and policymakers, as well as the general public. We've developed a website, which you're going to see today. We've distributed and trained the many agencies on naloxone distribution and use, and that is the drug that counteracts opioids. And I can tell you that it has already saved many lives in our county since we began the distribution and training. We're also working on safe disposal options for expired or unused opioids in our county homes. And I'm very excited to announce that we're starting safe prescribing efforts with our prescribers in the county, and we're going to be launching that with an educational event next month at San Juan Oaks for our local prescribers and pharmacists. So on all counts, we're making great strides. It's really good news for this county, and we're having a significant impact, and I want to thank you for your support.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the doctor?
I want to introduce Veronica Johnson now. She's our AmeriCorps Vista volunteer through our opioid task force, and she's going to introduce you to our website.
Great.
Hello, everyone. I'm Veronica Johnson. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of our website. And this is just in preview mode, but as soon as I'm done showing it to you all, I'm going to publish it live from here. So this is our logo up at the top. And this is our welcome page. It has our mission. I'm going to try and be respectful of all your time, so that way I'll go through it kind of quick. And you can visit it afterwards as well. And the website is on the press release, which I had handed to the clerk of the board, and she passed it all out to you. So it goes over some of our accomplishments. There's buttons that will take you to different links. One of them is a local resource guide that I've worked on with the members of our task force. We have our Take Back Day that's coming up later on October 27th at the Target parking lot. This will also take you back to the DEA National Take Back Day site if you wanted to learn more. You can click on that as well to find out information on disposal sites here in town. We have given many naloxone trainings, and you can find out what that is by clicking on that button. Education and outreach is one of our top priorities, and so this gives you a little overview of that, as well as resources available locally and on the internet. We have a little contact information page in case you're wanting to learn more about it. And I also created a Spanish page. That way we're able to give as much information to as many populations in our community as we can. So this includes some videos. You can't see it just because it's blocked here on the county website. And so it also includes our Spanish disposal flyer, as well as all credible sources of information on opioids, and they're all in Spanish. Our other ones are about us, so who is the task force, what are we doing, what are our top priorities. It also includes all of the logos, and you can click on each of these logos in this little slideshow, and it'll link out to every single one of those organizations' websites. And just very quickly, and the next ones we have, if people are trying to understand what the opioid epidemic is, we have a series of videos as well as news articles that can be clicked, and you can sit here all day and learn all about it. We also have what's going on in the news, so nationally, statewide, and then also local, and it's highlighted in the red of local news that's going on surrounding opioids. We have a prevention page, which includes our strategies as a task force. You can click on each of those bold terms to learn more. And then there's two sub-pages. One is on naloxone, which is the opioid reversing drug, and it has videos, the Surgeon General's advisory, as well as a brochure that I created to inform the public of opioid safety and how to use naloxone. And then we also have a syringe safety page under the prevention page. We don't have any syringe exchanges here locally, but there are some nearby, so those are included, as well as safe disposal sites in town that anyone can use. And you can see that on the safe disposal flyer that was created with waste management, as well as dates and times of the nearby syringe exchanges. And then our last few pages are our resource pages. Sorry, I'm trying to go through this quickly. We have treatment services, which are local and just website-based as well, support groups, also chronic pain alternatives online as well as here locally, parent resources and patient resources, and safe disposal video that Waste Management created for our county, as well as those flyers that I had shown you before. And then our last two pages, one is for our providers, so it's specific links for any prescriber if they wanted to learn more about opioids or about policies or laws or surrounding those. And our last page is just statistics. The statistics page links out to the California Opioid Safety Dashboard, and this information right here is just from that website specifically. So it gives us our rates in our county specifically, and you can see San Benito County has a much higher rate than our neighboring counties, which is why we're trying to do as much as we can and try and get this information out to the public. It also has driving under the influence data, as well as just California state statistics in an interactive website. It's a separate website from this, and it'll go over the epidemic in a little timeline, as well as an interactive website. So this is the site I wanted just to show you all, and right now I'm going to publish it. Sorry, give me one moment. Thank you for being patient. I'm going to click the next button as soon as this loads, and it'll be live.
It's like the groundbreaking.
And so you see this publish button up here. I'm going to click that right now, and we are going to be live. So we're live, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, just like the groundbreaking.
So thank you for your support. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? Any questions or comments from the public?
We tried to bring you good news today.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much. I know the Foleys have found this meeting very fascinating, and at the request of Supervisor Medina, he asked to move item 20 up, and I think that's a good suggestion. So we'll take care of item 20, CAO.
Item number 20. Okay, so yes, this item was brought by, I believe, both supervisors, Mark Medina some time back, Supervisor Robert Rivas as well, a few meetings back, and asked to get a report on Fallon Road, and when staff had some time to review it and come back with a report. So I've asked John Girton to present that to you this morning, so he's going to be discussing Fallon and Fairview Road. John?
Good morning. So as Ray mentioned, this was a referral actually almost a year ago initially, and then due to other competing priorities, didn't get completely put on the back burner, but wasn't a high priority for us to focus on, and then it's since come back up. So we've taken a look at this is the intersection of Fallon and Fairview, which I know that there's been some discussion among supervisors and your constituents about the safety of this intersection and difficulty people have navigating this intersection. Just anecdotally, the information that we get from folks who call to talk to us about the intersection is it's not really the crossing of the intersection, if you see here. So this would be coming from not from where we are, sorry, from my office. I thought I was in my office for a minute. But coming from San Felipe, where'd my arrow go there? There we go. Coming from San Felipe up, and then folks generally turning right here or turning right in this direction to go out to Highway 156. That seems to be the movement that causes the most difficulty for folks because people are traveling at such fast rates of speed on Fairview. So, engineers always look at the data. They don't like to go off of anecdotal information. So we had the accident reports from the Highway Patrol, and what we have from them is 9 accidents over the last 5 years. 2 of those accidents resulted in 2 fatalities. So then we wanted to compare that to other comparable intersections, and I have a whole list if you want to go over them all. But we're actually really fortunate in this county that we don't have a large number of accidents. So we have 9 here at Fallon and Fairview, but similar intersections like Shore and Fraser Lake, which gets a number of cars going through there on a daily basis, has had 6 accidents in the same 5-year period. 2 fatalities as well. Both of those fatalities were in just one of the accidents. And then one that's actually not our intersection, but it's a good one for comparison, is Wright and Highway 25. I go through that at least once a day. I can tell you that's a scary intersection. And it's similar to Fallon and Fairview in that it doesn't tee up. The road comes in at a diagonal, so that impacts your ability to view oncoming traffic as you're trying to cross. We've had 7 accidents there in the last 5 years with 0 fatalities.
I don't know
Supervisor,
if that's correct, because a friend of mine passed away there. And it could have been before 2013.
Okay. Well, we can double check the data that we're getting from CHP and make sure that we're getting accurate data from them, because we can only go off of what the staff gets from CHP reports.
Via bundle.
Right, well.
Yeah, we'll double check to make sure that our accident reports are accurate and up to date.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So some of the issues with Fallon and Fairview, as I mentioned, like Wright and Highway 25, the intersection doesn't tee up in a way that's actually appropriate for signalization of an intersection. You can see it comes in at a diagonal there, and then as you go east on Fallon, you see there's a curve in the road, and they did that in order to get them to line up at least facing each other as people want to cross there. For anything that we do there, we're going to, as best we can, the best option would be to try to tee up the intersections so that you're approaching the intersection at a 90-degree angle to improve visibility of oncoming traffic. We have some complications in this intersection with not only the diagonal, but with private property that comes right up to the roadway. You can see on the southwest corner of the intersection, there's a house that's right on the intersection and would cause right-of-way issues if we were to try to tee up in that direction. Fortunately, in the northeast section over there, there's that corner that I believe is property that's owned by the church on the corner there. And I know that in the past they've expressed willingness to talk with the county about right-of-way acquisition if we need to use that to make the intersection better. Obviously, they have a vested interest in making that intersection better. So anything that we do with this intersection will require a traffic study and require at least some preliminary engineering to come up with options for how we can address this intersection, and then come with engineer estimates so that the board has some suggestions on what to do with
Mr.
this.
Gurdon, it just seems like with different developments that we've had over a period of time for years, and the impacts on Fairview Road, traffic-wise, don't we have some older studies and mitigations requirements and impact fees identified to go to those intersections especially the major ones along Fairview, like Santana Ranch? I'll give you that example. That they probably had some mitigation requirements for or funding for that. Do we have some money socked away for that?
Anthony.
Oh, well, it maybe.
He brought up the Santana Ranch, so I was waiting to talk about this, but I think it's at the 500th house that is occupied. There needs to be a stoplight at the end of, on the intersection of Fairview and Hillcrest.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the stoplight just right down the road on Sunny Slope and Fairview, in my opinion, I'm not an expert at this, is ample. What I was wondering is there a way we can talk to someone and see if we can move that stop sign or stoplight and put it to the Fallon and Fairview? Because it has not there. It's still nothing has been done at that point. At this point in time, right now, nothing has been done with that intersection. They haven't done any type of construction or anything like that. And I'm just wondering, what is the chances of something like that happening? I know it's not probably allowed, but I'm just trying to figure something different.
So if I think I understand your question, at first I thought you meant move the infrastructure from the one that's currently in.
No, nothing's been done yet, sir.
No, we can't. So that was a mitigation that was part of the development agreement that was done in conjunction with approval of the Santana Ranch project. And there's really no nexus to the Santana Ranch project that was drawn in that study with this intersection that we have here. Obviously the folks who live in Santana Ranch drive all over the area, so there's impacts to all the areas, but those weren't the impacts that were picked for mitigation. But back to your question.
Well, before you get back to my question,
I'm fine.
Yeah, okay. Along with maybe Supervisor Medina's, where he was going with it, and the numbers are kind of surprising. I think there's a whole lot more accidents, maybe not at that particular intersection, but along that stretch, because people are going 90 miles an hour, and it doesn't necessarily happen at the intersection. They'll drive off and hit a pole or hit oncoming cars away from the intersection. But what we need is traffic calming measures through that whole stretch of road. And maybe another alternative funding source is shop funds.
Okay, so don't take the wind out of my sails. Let me finish my presentation.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, let's go ahead and let you finish your presentation for a time.
All right. So, since funding's the big question, this is just a really, back of napkin estimate here. So don't hold us to this, but this is just a quick estimate that our engineers came up with for something similar to this. For construction, we'd be looking at, for just the road improvements and teeing up the intersection, about $500,000, and that would be with minimal change in the directions of Fallon Road, and then another $300,000 to install the traffic signals. Then we have about another $400,000 for the design work and permitting and construction engineering. Right of way, we just took a guess and said $300,000 with land, or $200,000 with land acquisition and $100,000 with utility relocation. We really don't know until we come up with the options for how we're going to tee up that intersection, or if it's even necessary really to tee. There may be an option for just leaving it in the configuration it's in. Land acquisition, depending on which direction we go, could go down or could significantly go up. And then just $200,000 for contingencies was just a ballpark. So we're looking at probably somewhere between $1.5 and $2 million. It would be a good estimate for project costs. So normally this is something that we would be looking for grants for. We have applied for grants twice in the last, I want to say 6 or 7 years for this intersection. But the problem is for the type of funding that we would get for this, we don't qualify because there aren't enough accidents. More importantly, there aren't enough fatal accidents. So that's how the funding streams work. So we've been denied twice for grant funding. Now, the potential fortunate thing is that we made sure to include this project in the Measure G proposal. So if Measure G does pass, this is one of the priority projects to get accomplished with that available funding.
After all the projects in District 2?
I don't know. Is there anybody from District 2 here?
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Another good reason to push for G.
Right. So this would be one of the first projects that we would tackle with Measure G funding. This is going to be other projects that are identified in Measure G will get done first, just by nature of the fact that they're preventative maintenance or light rehab work that can get done more quickly. This is going to take at least a year to get designed and get bid out and get constructed.
Okay. Good. Anything else in your presentation before we?
That's it. No, I wanted to get to the Measure G issue.
Okay. Any other questions from the board before I ask the public to comment? Supervisor Munzer?
I guess if we're going to acquire land to line up the intersection, would it cost more to do a roundabout there than the signals?
Typically, when it comes to right-of-way, a roundabout does cost more because it requires more acquisition of right-of-way. With this intersection, that may not be an issue. The right-of-way may be the same. We need to look at that, and this is, in my opinion, this is a good candidate to at least explore the option of a roundabout. Doesn't mean that that's the best option.
No, not the AMDAC. I'm sorry. The Air District has some money, and I keep alluding to the fact that the county is not putting in anything for AB 2766 funding, and this would be a great candidate.
Yeah, at the very least, that would help with.
It's not going to be 1.7 million, I know.
No, but that funding's good for offsetting design costs.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's a good option, and I know that they like the idea of roundabouts because it does reduce idling, which is a major contributor to the air impacts.
And just a personal note, Friday afternoon, I was traveling southbound on Fairview Road, coming up to the Fallon-Fairview intersection, and a North County mom, fortunately she didn't have any of her kids in the car with her. She was east of Fairview on Fallon, made a left-hand turn, and as she was making her left-hand turn, her right front wheel came off. She ended up dragging it through the intersection, and there's not enough shoulder for her to even get off the road. So she was sticking out in the middle of the road. I stayed on scene until the tow truck came, hooked her up, and towed her off. And we were trying to get CHP out there. And again, it was Friday afternoon, but CHP never showed up. And there were school buses going back and forth, parents driving to get their kids from Spring Grove, and just a normal traffic. And it was not a safe situation, but fortunately nothing did happen. Mm-hmm. So that, yes, we definitely need to get this intersection taken care of. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to the public. Any speaker cards?
Yes, Tim Foley.
I should point out real quickly, because you'll probably hear it too, just so you know, in all the intersections that we did look at, this is the highest incident of accidents of all the intersections we reviewed in the county.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you. I want to commend Supervisor Medina for informing his constituents in the area about this agenda item. So, thank you. We've already addressed the tragedy impending on Fairview with Santana Ranch, and we have the school buses and everything else. Glad to know that there's a concrete process unfolding. What can we do in the meantime to provide some type of mitigation there? I don't know, flashing yellow signs. We go by where there are the displays of you're going this fast and all. If we can get something in there that can get done for the next couple of years, I think it'll be life-saving. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nance Foley. I have lived out on McMahon Road for 16 years now. When I first moved out there, you could go up to the corner of of Fallon and Fairview, and you would not see a car, and you'd be able to go across the street. It's not like that anymore. We have a lot more traffic on that road and a lot of insane drivers on that road. And sometimes driving on that road makes me insane as well. We have farm equipment going slowly, taking up 3/4 of the roadway. We have moms driving out to Spring Grove, dropping off their kids. They're normally late, doing their makeup and drinking their coffee as they're driving. We have the commuters coming home, talking on their phones. All these things exist everywhere. And today I've gotten a really good feel for the challenges that you face. There's people that need money, and there's people that need help in many, many areas. But I think Supervisor Botello said it very well when he said we need to have a look at that whole area and a slowdown. We are sitting on tragedy after tragedy happening there, and it makes me really sad. One of the problems with Fairview and Fallon is that the road curves off, so you can literally look this way and not see a car, and look this way and go back to look this way, and there will be a car there that had been out of your line, just lined up perfectly with poles and trees for you to miss it. I've learned to be very, very, have a lot of respect for that intersection. I never go through there without looking both ways about 6 times, and I've almost gotten flattened. And a lot of people have been flattened there. And there's a lot more accidents than are reported because they tell you not to report them if there's not an injury. So I can tell you that I'll often see cars pulled off to the side exchanging insurance information. So anything you can do to help that intersection would be greatly appreciated, not only by me, but by the Neighborhood Watch area. Supervisor Medina has met with us before. Supervisor Barrios had met with us previously. This has been an ongoing concern. And thank you for your time and your effort and your thoughts on this problem.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Anyone else would like to address the board? Please come.
I'm not a public speaker.
What you could do is fill it out afterwards, and but come to the podium, speak, and then you can fill it out and make sure our clerk has your name and address.
So my voice may be shaky a little bit, but my name is Melissa Michelson, and I'm third-generation Hollister. My grandfather owned Fallon Road Ranch, so I've seen the buildup of population and cars and everything. And I also used to live on Las Fibras Road and travel that, and it was a scary intersection 20 years ago when I lived out there. And I personally had a pretty horrific accident myself, and had to be have the jaws of life and be life flighted because of that horrible. It was a dark night, and I'm saying it was my fault because of the visibility. I had high beams coming at me. It was one of those really bad, unfortunate events, and the fact that the road, and there was an orchard and pine trees growing over the stop sign at that time. Yes, they've cleaned it up, but that part was fine. But now we have Santana Ranch, and obviously the volume of cars and especially big trucks. I mean, we have huge trucks traveling down that road now, probably, a lot of cattle trucks even, and equipment, construction trucks. But I think the thing that's kind of just made my blood pressure go up a little bit, and no offense to you because it was a statistic you were reporting, but the fact that we have to have more fatalities, and it just hurts me because these are kids and carloads of kids going through that intersection. I drive my grandkids to school there with just anxiety because there's people going to, I'm sorry. It's not, I don't want our kids to be a statistic, because that's the volume of people going through that intersection twice a day. And not only that, now we're, obviously we're bringing in more houses, but now we're trying to bring in more, bring in more industry, and there's industry right down the road on Fallon Road. I believe it's Technova that's building that big. There's something on, it's not in, it's by the police department, a huge building going up. What was it, Mark?
The drywall company.
Okay. Again, they're going to employ more people. So highway, Wright Road and 25, granted, there was accidents there. Fraser Lake and Fairview, granted. But that's only a little cross-section, whereas now we have people going Fallon, we have both directions and this way, because they're going to work and they're going to school and they're dropping their kids, and it doesn't make sense to me that we have to have a fatality, in order to get this to move fast. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from public? If not, I'll bring it back to the board. And I, for one, see that our roads need a lot of, thought and planning. And, speed is not only a problem on Fairview, it's out there in my neck of the woods, San Justo, Duncan, Freitas Road. And what's happening is a lot of this traffic that's coming back to Hollister is bypassing the congestion on 25, and they're looking to coming down Fraser Lake Road and going 90 miles an hour on Shore to Fairview, and that's how they justify taking those weird routes. And somehow, as you build up your staff, John, with a real good traffic engineer, I hope you give them the opportunity to look at these routes and see what kind of traffic calming measures that we could be putting into a lot of these straightaway roads. People are nuts. They drive like idiots. And it's not too often that of a day that goes by that I'm not flipping somebody off myself or driving too fast by my house. But I think we have to widen Highway 25, make it the road that it needs to be to carry our commuters, so they're not taking these county side streets, and slow down the county side streets where they're not side streets, they're main roads, but slow those roads down, whether with stoplights, roundabouts, or what have you, to encourage people to stay on the state highways and to get to their destinations, rather than the dangerous, a lot of access points and little side roads with no shoulders, Supervisor Munzer mentioned. It's safer for everybody. Supervisor Rivas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, that's a point well stated, and I want to thank staff for bringing this presentation forward. I think, my concerns about this is we can point to any number of roads and intersections that needs improvement in San Benito County, but this intersection in particular is needs some serious attention. Having grown up in this county, I've learned how to drive on Fairview Road, and this is I look at Fairview Road as a perfect example of a country road in rural California, but unfortunately it's become a main thoroughfare for new residents, especially when you look at the people living in Santana, Ranch out there. And that's a huge concern for me, because this is a road that is significantly stressed out and needs major improvements throughout, its entirety. But when you look at this intersection in particular, the potential, the fact that we've had 9 accidents and 2 fatalities over this time span, that's 2 fatalities too much for San Benito County. And so certainly I predict that it would only get worse if we don't, pay some serious attention to this intersection and do something about it. And so, I really hope that we can take some action and speed up the process, the timeline, whatever it takes to get this intersection done. And certainly, hopefully, this will only serve as an example to pay attention to other areas in our county, so we could begin to repair and to fix a lot of these infrastructure issues. But certainly, I think that what's of main concern for me is our current traffic pattern and future traffic patterns going down these country roads that can't sustain the amount of traffic that they're currently receiving. And so certainly, hopefully, we can take action as a board, work together with our community residents out there or in these other areas to help and mitigate these issues. But thank you, John, and for your work. I really appreciate it.
Any other supervisor? John, any closing thoughts?
No. So as far as a permanent solution right now, I think we'll wait a few weeks and see what happens with Measure G. If Measure G passes, then we can start work on a design.
It will.
When it passes. You just heard the CAO say I'm not allowed to engage in any political discussions. Depending on the direction it goes, we'll either come back with a recommendation for moving forward, or we'll have to revisit other funding options and come back with options that way for you. And in the meantime, we will. My engineers are looking into temporary traffic calming measures, whether it's flashing lights, warning signs, rumble strips, whatever, to try to slow down. Because a lot of the actions there are caused, as you heard, not necessarily from the design of the intersection, but the speed that people are traveling through that intersection.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Supervisor Rivas?
Mr. Patel, would it be possible to get on November 20th, just get an update? We should have a good idea if Measure G passes by then.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think that's a great idea.
Is that okay, John?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that good thought. We could do that. With that, we'll maybe take one more item before we break for lunch. Or you still want to break, Supervisor Monto? No.
We can.
Okay, good.
There are two items. One's really quick, and then the other one shouldn't be that long either.
All right, let's roll.
All right.
19.
All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll call up our budget officers, Melinda Casillas, as well as Stuart. And they're going to go ahead and tag team this item. So Melinda Casillas will be discussing with your board the fiscal year end of 6/30/2018 and how well we did with the budget this last year, as well as the first quarter results will be presented by Stuart. So, Melinda.
Good morning. Okay, we'll try to make this really quickly. We just wanted to give you a fiscal update for the year ending June 30th, 2018, and also the first quarter of fiscal year 18-19. So I'm going to do the first half of it, and Stuart will present the rest. So as of June 30th, 2018, our revenues were roughly $44 million, and our expenditures were $41 million. And so we are anticipating that we will put back into the general fund balance roughly $2.3 million. A couple of extraordinary items that we had this year, Lovers Lane and Pacheco Creek projects. We spent roughly $700,000. To date, we've received about 107. As we know, FEMA, OES, that's kind of a long process in disasters to get the reimbursement back for our expenditures. The landslide happened at the very end of fiscal year 2018, and your board approved expenditures of $660,000, and we have set that money aside in the numbers that we had before. Vacancy budgeting, we had a 92% meet of our goal of about $1.6 million. And we had negotiations this year. We had some budget set aside. We had a 3.5% COLA and a bonus, and we used about $277,000 of our budget. A lot of it was used in vacancies to meet that goal. our leave payouts, we budgeted about $200,000, and we used about little over $100,000 of that budget. Services and supplies offset was kind of a new concept. We noticed that at the end of the year, we don't normally meet. All our services and supplies are not necessarily used up, and so we were able to capture back about 67% of our services and supplies. Our economic indicators, we were up in all the areas or almost all the areas that we consider economic indicators: property taxes, supplemental taxes, property transfer, sales tax, public safety, building permits. We were a little bit behind on what we call public works permits. As you can see, we were our secured property taxes were just slightly below what our budget was. We were a little more aggressive on our secured taxes than we have been in the past. So we still pretty well came close to that goal. We were still 8% above what we had the year before. The sales tax of 217% over what we budgeted. We had decreased that budget a little bit because our trends showed that we weren't quite meeting our budget. And then I think with the increase in PV2, that increased our sales tax quite a bit. And then I thought you might be interested in road revenues, our usual what we call HUDA, highway users taxes. We budgeted at 1.6. We actually received about 1.7, so it was pretty close to what we budgeted. And then for the first time last year, we had SB1. We budgeted 500, a little over 500,000, and we received 509,000. So we were about 94% of what we budgeted for. All the details to this budget are attached. We have 4 exhibits. If you have questions on the details that made up those numbers, please let our office know, and we can get you the information and answer the questions that you have regarding that information. Before I go on, any questions?
Any questions?
So I think overall it was a decent budget. Obviously, we have a lot of vacancies, and I know there were some concerns today about staffing, and it's been an ongoing concern. And so again, that's part of the classification study and comp study. We're going to be evaluating that, and that's something that we're going to be going out to RFP about as well soon. So there's some things we need to look at from that perspective. The increase in sales tax, so that increased as well. That's the reason why we see that number there, just so the board's aware of that.
Okay, and then our first quarter, I'll let Stuart make that presentation.
Okay, so I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the salary and benefits and our contingencies so far for the first quarter. We're not going to highlight the revenues because a lot of the revenues have not come in yet. We're still waiting on claims for the first quarter for many of the departments. For the first quarter, we're on track. We have the totals there is 90% of our salaries and benefits have been used up. We would expect to be around the 25% mark. But again, the issues with the vacancies, we have a proposed vacancy budgeting adjustment of about $1.7 million for this first quarter. On to the other special revenue funds. They're all within budget currently, but again, they're all pretty low due to vacancies. We did want to highlight, though, behavioral health is fairly low as opposed to some of the other funds, but I believe a few board meetings ago, there was an organization change that was brought to the board to address some recruitment and retention issues for some of the mental health clinician classes. And as you all know, the Southside landslide issue cut out about $400,000 of the contingency budget for the year. So we're looking at leftover with $600,000 left for the rest of the 3 quarters of the year. And the recommended budget was approved by the Board of Supervisors June 26th. It is now referred to as the adopted budget. There were a few minor detail edits on that, and it is now available at the county website. Those slides got pulled out. But that is it. Was there any questions on this first quarter so far?
Any questions from our board? Seeing none, that's good.
So basically, we're tracking. We're a little bit. We're doing well with the first quarter. Obviously, I think it goes back again to the vacancy piece. That's where that gap's at.
Yeah.
We'll have to really address that this next year.
A couple of those departments we got to spend some of that money and get some people in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Anybody from the public would like to comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, or you got more, Melinda?
No, we're good with that item. We're going to be on item number 21.
All right, good. We'll move to 21. Very good job.
So this is out of your office, the Board of Supervisors. Normally this time of the year, we usually will request your board to appoint a CSAC board member to the Board of Directors for CSAC for 1819. So this November, we need somebody on staff so we can give this to CSAC. So
okay,
this is back to you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Medina.
I would like to. I would like to appoint Jaime De La Cruz.
See, I thought you were just appoint yourself, but Supervisor De La Cruz, does anyone else have any other ideas? Seeing none, I think he's qualified for that. He's the current one anyway.
No, I'm actually the alternate. Supervisor Rios is the current one for this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead. I appoint Supervisor De La Cruz. Do I make it, or does the board have to vote on it?
Hey, your board. It should come from the board. So we have a first. Yeah.
There's a motion. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none.
No.
Yeah. Right. Right. Okay. I guess. Pardon me? Yes. Oh, an alternate. Supervisor Medina?
I'll make a motion for Supervisor Medina as the alternate.
Okay. I'll second it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Good. Got it. So closed session items.
Number 22, closed session, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, subdivision D2, number of cases 1, 23, closed session, public employee annual review, county administrative officer, Government Code Section 54957. 24, closed session, conference with labor negotiators, agency designated representatives, Burke Dumphy, Dania Torres Wong, Ray Espinoza, Joe Pong Gonzalez, Melinda Casillas, Elvia Barochio, Steve Coffey, and employee organizations, institutions, association, law enforcement, management employees group, SEIU Local 521, SEIU Local 2015, Deputy Sheriff's Association, confidential employees, confidential management employees, appointed department heads, and unrepresented pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. And lastly, 25 is closed sessions, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to 54956.9A and D1, County of San Benito versus Richard Scagliotti, 6th Appellate District Court of Appeals, case number H045887.
And just as a reminder, Mr. Chair, I'll be recusing myself for 25.
Okay, great. You think we could get through these items before lunch?
At least two of them.
At least two. I will get through them all. Okay, all right. Anybody from the public would like to address the board on any of the closed session items? Seeing none, let's go knock them out then.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Barbara. Yes. Where do we start? Let's start with John Haberlin, number 23. I'll get John Haberlin and the sheriff. Okay, so should I just go right? Yeah, so hello. You can have the board wait until 12:30. Maybe we could do it at 12:30 to 1 o'clock if those, and then break. That's up to the board. I don't know.
Okay.
John, let's have you come first. How are you?
Good. Nice to see you. How are you?
The issue
Like, where is that? I don't know where that is in relationship to where you're, you know what I mean?
If you gotta spend that money.
Hey, good to see you. How's it going?
Great, good.
We're not talking about the same land, we're just in different lands.
Yes.
Okay.
No, this is totally different.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't misunderstanding, like, oh, the place where all those crashes are is it also exactly where you
No.
want? Okay, all right.
And so the issue is whether we can, I know that they can get traffic in terms of changing roads. They have to deal with property owners. Second, so then the second issue is, could you pick up the number 62?
Right there. Okay, so you do need it in the same place?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, okay.
And so,
How you doing? You okay?
I'm okay today. Yes, sir.
Give me a call this afternoon when you get a chance.
Okay.
You ready to go for a run then?
Thank God I got this operation at this time.
So it's just a thought I had while I was
Oh.
looking at it, because we're looking for traffic. And the cost of traffic is per. If we can get that, that's probably good. But to do another.
Is that the one you wanted before?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's for the Pluskies and the family or something?
Yeah. But if we could get another 100 units, that would be 200 new affordable housing units, plus fixing roads. And, so it kind of like, can you into something that you can take.
See, so the Senate is going to hold that seat in Congress.
Yes.
So they are going to have, and Anna was not, like, we were not strategic in having her be like, this would, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I need to, like, go in and around her and go to the Senate leadership and be like, you this district for the next 4 years. It gives her something so
Sure.
whatever, so that we can help her. And then probably something for the promotion.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, yeah.
But
We'll do it.
well, we'll talk about it.
See what you guys need. Yeah.
In the meantime, I'll talk with John. There are issues with it, like, there's power there. Is there water there?
Right.
Is it in the city or is it in the county? Is there an annexation issue?
Well, and it sounds like there's already terrible traffic there. They're going to want additional housing.
Right. Well, if you fix the traffic, if you build homes, you got to fix the traffic.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Because you can have people.
But is the traffic bad design or overuse or both? And if
No,
it's
actually,
overuse and you're just adding more cars,
What
does it make it any better?
what you need to do is to take that road and make it come in
As it, yeah, perfect.
like
yes.
this,
Yeah.
and then build housing around for the traffic. Okay. If you can make that happen.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah.
And so then the thing is to cobble together the money. And we also have to find out if any of that property.
I just wanted to let everyone know that it's still being broadcast.
It should be okay because there's homes out there, right? But if you bring them in, they would be able to consider selling. Those are the issues. Yeah. Yeah, not for affordable housing. You can't do
Oh, no, they'll be here until the end of the year. Okay, that was the picture. Yeah, yeah. So you should come back. You should, I think, come back on the 20th to hear the update on things. Yeah. And then.
Well, I can give them an election update on what happened.
Well, and what I would suggest is, you know, the top issue in San Diego is drugs. That's the number one issue. How you get it.
Well, they need to, like, I need to have, like, I guess I can set up a meeting and make them all come, right? Like, that's sort of above my pay grade, but I guess I can, like, because what we need to do is we need to get us, we need to get Monday, we need to say the same, we need to get all that together and agree, and even though they're going to get more than we are, because they're bigger and have more people, that's the only way we're going to get shit.
Well, so when you and I,
So we need to, like,
when you and I meet on the date, let's put together some bullet points of 3, 4, 5 things that you can, you know, and then like roads and transportation, and you can write them in a paragraph.
Yeah.
And what we'll do is we'll send it to Ray and we'll send it to the chair and say, this is what we want to talk about on the 20th.
And then we need to, like, and I'm happy to coordinate it if they, like, have a blessing, like, I can set it up.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have a history of doing this kind of thing. No, yeah, they don't. And so to go in and say, you know, I mean, I don't know how you go in and how you say, well, here's the things, roads, second on my list,
Services, yeah.
housing. I don't know what the other issues would be. I mean, I don't know if the sheriff has something. And then the last thing I put on the list is what I would call, and there's got to be another word for it, district discretionary funding.
We're not, you can't get it from the state.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't even ask. We're look like idiots.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Why?
That's just not how it works.
Well,
Like,
how are we going to get $2 million this year?
Well, that's like a real thing. You can free up district discretionary spending by asking the state for it to pay for other stuff. But we are not going to ask for discretionary funding.
Okay, so we're going to ask the state.
We're going to say, but if they tell me I need this much money to do this specific thing, we can ask for that. And when that means money is fungible, then that means you can use your money for other stuff. But I just can't say, hey, trust me, state, you're going to come give the money to Ray and the board to use his head.
Oh, no.
Can't do that.
No. When I say district discretionary, I mean the representatives can go and ask for some money for specific things. So, things that would be on my list. For example, let's say we get McCluskey. Okay? So we get McCluskey.
What did that pay for?
Closed sessions.
Just so you know, your conversation is being broadcast live.
Well, it shouldn't be.
I know it shouldn't be, but it is. You might want to step into the. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Sure.
I mean, everybody knows our strategy.
Yes. You must have really powerful microphones. Oh.
So,
We'll resume shortly. So, anyway.
thank you.
Hi, David. It's Michael. Simon. I'm good. I just checked my balance. It's $80, and it should be close to $55. Can you tell me what the difference is? Sure. Correct. Wait a second. How could there be something? I don't understand the $15 my bill is $55. No, I paid $59 last time. I included a late charge of